This is going to sound insane, but I swear on everything, I'm not making it up. I still don't know how to process what happened. I'm still in shock. So, let me start from the beginning, so you can understand why I'm telling you this. A few weeks ago, I received a package at my doorstep. It was late at night, around 11 p.m., when I heard a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anything. It was a quiet evening, just me at home after a long day at work. The delivery was strange because it wasn't from any company I recognized, and there wasn't even a return address on it. The only thing written on the brown cardboard was my grandmother's name. But my grandmother, Nanny, passed away almost a year ago. I stood there staring at the package, confused and uneasy. Who would send something to her? And why to me? I don't know why, but I had this sudden, overwhelming feeling that I should open it. So, I did. Inside, I found a bunch of random objects, some old and some odd, but they were all carefully packed. First, I pulled out an old, faded photograph of a house. It wasn't one I recognized, but something about it felt eerily familiar. The house looked abandoned, overgrown with vines and shrouded in mist. There was a feeling about it, something that made my stomach twist. I could almost hear the wind howling through the trees in that photo. I looked closer and realized it was the house that my grandparents used to live in when I was a little girl. It had been sold years ago, and I hadn't thought about it in ages. The second item was a small tarnished pocket watch. It was heavy, more than I expected, with intricate designs carved into the metal. I flipped it open, but the hands were frozen, stuck at exactly 11:11. That struck me as odd because my grandmother always loved clocks. She even had a saying about how time is the most valuable thing you have. The fact that the hands on the watch were stuck at that time sent a shiver down my spine. Then, there was a small note, handwritten in my grandmother's familiar cursive. It said only one thing: "It's time to remember." My heart raced as I sat there holding the note. What was going on? I had no idea who could have sent this to me, but I had this gut feeling that something was wrong, that something was coming. I put everything down for a second, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. That's when I noticed the last object at the bottom of the box, a small, weathered book. The pages were yellowed, and the leather cover was cracked. I opened it, expecting it to be some sort of journal, but what I found inside was far worse. Each page was filled with predictions, horrible things, all of which seemed to involve me. The first few pages were almost innocent, describing events from my past, things that were so accurate it made my head spin. The book knew about my childhood, my first pet, my first day of school, even the birthday party where I accidentally broke my dad's old guitar. But then it got darker. The next page described a fire. It said, "The flames will consume what is dear to you, but you will walk away unscathed." I couldn't believe it. Was this some kind of sick joke? The next day, there was a small fire in my apartment, just a kitchen mishap, but the smoke was intense, and I had to call the fire department. I was fine, but the timing was so strange. I couldn't shake the feeling that somehow, this book was involved. As the days went on, the book's predictions started to feel more and more real. There was another page that said, "You will meet a stranger in a crowded place, and he will offer you something you should not take." A week later, I was at the mall when a man, a complete stranger, approached me. He handed me a small trinket, a charm shaped like a snake. He said, "You'll need this soon." I didn't take it, but the entire encounter made me feel physically ill. Then, the worst prediction came. It was written in bold, almost desperate handwriting. "The house of your ancestors will fall, and you will be the last to see it. Your past will destroy you." That's when everything started to spiral. The old house I saw in the photograph, it burned down in a freak accident just days later. I found out through the news. It was completely destroyed in a fire. The strange thing is, no one had even lived there for years, and there were no obvious signs of arson or foul play. But in that moment, I knew. It wasn't just a coincidence. It was the prediction. I thought maybe it was all just too weird, too coincidental. But then, the dreams started. Every night I would dream about the house, burning, the walls cracking, the roof caving in. But the worst part was that I wasn't alone. There were figures in the smoke. They had no faces, just shadows. They would whisper my name, and every time I reached out to touch them, I would wake up in a cold sweat. One night, I woke up to a sound. It was a soft knocking at my door, just like the knock when I first received the package. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. There was no way someone could have been there, right? I got up slowly, hesitantly. I opened the door, but no one was there, just the silence of the night. But then, on the floor in front of me was a small, folded note. I picked it up, my hands shaking, and read it aloud. "It's not over. The last piece is in your hands." I didn't know what that meant, but I felt the weight of it in my bones. I went back inside, closing the door behind me, and realized there was no more time. Something had been set in motion, something beyond my control. As I turned to look at the book, it was gone. The entire box was empty, like it had never existed. I ran to my parents' house, but they had no idea what I was talking about. No one knew. It was like everything was disappearing. But I remembered. The fire, the stranger, the book. Everything was connected, and somehow this was just the beginning. Whatever was coming, I knew it was coming for me. I couldn't run from it. I couldn't hide. I don't know who sent the package or why it's all happening, but I do know this. It's not just a book. It's not just some coincidence. Something has been triggered. And now, whatever was left in the past is coming for me, and it's too late to stop it. If you ever get a package like this, don't open it. Trust me, you don't want to know what's inside.